Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my first birding video of 2025 and I am pretty excited to get going here. As I announced at the end of my last video, I have set myself a challenge for 2025 for my birding channel. So I am going to try to photograph 250 species of birds in my home state of Massachusetts this year. So last year was super focused on my home patch, one birding area. So this year it's going to be different. I'm going to be traveling around to a lot of different hotspots and looking forward to seeing a lot of different places in Massachusetts, getting a little bit out of my comfort zone by visiting hotspots that I haven't been to before. I don't know about you, but I have this tendency to kind of return to the same places over and over again because I know them, I know where to find the birds there, and I'm familiar and I enjoy that. But it's also a lot of fun to go to places that you haven't been to before, so we'll be doing some of that. But not today. So today I am at Plum Island. I am parked in the first parking lot at Parker River National Wildlife Refuge. This is a place I do know pretty well. So today's video is going to be about finding birds here for getting the list underway. Today is January 4th. Before we get started with the birding at Plum Island here, I haven't even gotten out of my car yet. I do have some birds to start with from the past couple of days. So on January 1st, I woke up in the morning, looked at eBird, saw that all my lists were back to zero for the year. You know how that feeling is if you're a birder. So I did go out on New Year's Day. I did go to my home patch. I went to Horn Pond because it was raining and I didn't have a lot of time to bird on January 1st, unfortunately. But I did get a few birds to start out with. So the very first bird that I filmed in 2025 was a belted kingfisher. So got out of my car at the first parking lot and the kingfisher was chattering away. It's kind of unusual to have one around in January, but it seems to be getting a little bit more common as long as there's some open water there around. So I did film that. And then as I walked around that day, I also got a great blue heron looking kind of dramatic, perched on a branch here with its feathers all fluffed out around its neck, looking kind of neat. A little later in the day, I did find one of the resident barred owls that you can usually find at Horn Pond. So looking a little wet up in the tree there. I will get better video of those throughout the year, that's for sure. So that was kind of a nice way to start out on New Year's Day. Nothing spectacular. Obviously, I saw a lot of other birds. I didn't do a lot of filming because it was raining. So then on January 2nd and 3rd, those were work days for me. I did have to go to work, but I did have a chance to sneak out and do a little bit of birding. So on Thursday, January 2nd, what I did is I went and looked for a snow goose that had been seen. So that was my last new bird for my home patch in 2024. I saw that on December 30th, and it's just been kind of moving around my local area. I did actually re-find it, but it was on the other side of a large lake, that Mystic Lake, and I was only able to see it really, really far away, so I didn't film it. While I was looking for it, I did run across a brown creeper, so that was a nice little encounter. So I think I'm going to add brown creeper to the year list now from January 2nd. This video footage I got of the creeper was nothing special, but I did get one photo that I thought came out really well. It's important to photograph creepers when they're sideways on the tree. And then on January 3rd, which was yesterday, I got a report that the goose was actually feeding on some grass at the south end of Mystic Lake. So I drove down there and I was able to get some nice close-up views of it. So snow goose is a good bird. Start out early in the year. Those are fairly rare in Massachusetts. Hadn't actually seen one at all for a couple of years. So good to get this nice juvenile snow goose on the list for 2025 as well as getting it in 2024. So then after filming the snow goose, being happy about getting that close-up video, got back home and immediately I got a text from a friend that a red-necked grebe had showed up at my home patch. So my home patch keeps drawing me back. I can't separate myself from it. So that's a really good bird for any inland location, any inland lake. And it's even not so easy to film on the ocean either. So I ran over there and did find the red-necked grebe and got that on film. So that's a really great one for my home patch. And it's also a good solid year bird for my challenge in 2025 as well. So I was really happy to get this red-necked grebe on film. The red-necked grebe was moving around quite actively and diving a lot, so it was a little hard to keep track of it. Here you can see how fast it was swimming along on the surface as it passes by these coots. So I'm also going to add in here a couple more birds that I saw at Horn Pond on the day after I visited Plum Island. This is, obviously, a bald eagle. They're getting to be so common in my area that it's almost possible to start taking them for granted, but they really are magnificent birds. When an eagle perches above a busy path like this one's doing right now, it always draws a little group of people looking up at it.
Did you get the fluffing? Yeah, a little.
And here's one of the resident mockingbirds that lives on the golf course that's part of my home patch. Okay, so we do have a few good birds on the list. The list is underway. And so today here at Plum Island, I'm going to be just birding around to see what I can find. I'm not expecting to see a lot of birds today, especially small land birds. The winds have really been whipping over the island the past few days, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of small songbirds lingering around, but I am hoping to find some raptors today. There have been some reports of rough-legged hawk and even short-eared owl recently, so those would be fantastic. I'm going to be looking for seabirds as well, see if I can find some scoters, maybe even some overwintering shorebirds. So stick with me and we'll see what we can get the list to after today's video. There were not many birds to be seen on the ocean at the Lot 1 overlook, and at first glance I thought the beach was empty as well. Then I noticed a small group of shorebirds, which turned out to be sanderlings. I always enjoy watching sanderlings scurrying back and forth in the waves, but the conditions today were not ideal for leisurely viewing. On the inland side of the road, I found a large flock of American tree sparrows, a species found only in the wintertime in Massachusetts. They can be hard to find some winters, but they seem to be quite numerous this winter, and Plum Island is always a good spot for them. This female cardinal was really fighting the wind as she tried to hop around on the ground. The male cardinals get the most attention, but the females are nice-looking birds too. Okay, so I spent a little time birding on the north end of the refuge, the Parker River National Wildlife Refuge. Have seen a few birds, saw some nice sanderlings, some tree sparrows, which was one of my targets for the day. Conditions are actually pretty challenging for birding and filming today. It's fairly cold and actually quite windy, so very limited time that you can have your fingers out of the gloves, and your face gets numb pretty quickly out there. And then the wind, of course, buffets the camera when you're trying to film things. So it's winter birding. So what I'm going to do is head down to the south end of the island now, where there's a place to go out and look at the ocean, and we'll see if there's anything happening on the ocean at this point. So I'll come back pretty soon. Well, that was kind of nice. Right after I filmed that last segment, there were some cars stopped along the side of the road. Always a good sign when you're birding in an area like this. And there was the barred owl that was perched out on an open stick. On the one hand, that's the owl that I can see whenever I want to on my home patch. But it is nice to see one here. I don't think I've seen one at Parker River for quite a while, so maybe that's a good sign of things to come for lots of different owls this winter. We'll see. I was happy to see these long-tailed ducks in fairly close to shore and moving around actively. They're rather unique-looking ducks, and to me they somehow managed to look both comical and elegant at the same time. This flight shot came out pretty well, although I should have had my shutter speed set a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm heading back north now. Not as many birds as I was hoping down at the south end of the island. Did get some footage of long-tailed ducks, which is a nice species, so that one's good. We'll count that one. Don't know if there's anything else really to report down there from the south end. Saw some eider and some other things like that, but I didn't film them. I know I'll have some better chances soon. Then on the way back, just a few minutes ago, I did see a rough-legged hawk, so that was a great one to see. It was kind of far away. I know it has this place it likes to hunt, and it's really not in an accessible area, so you kind of see it from a distance. I'll have to look at the footage and the video. I'll put that up now, what I got, but I think I'm going to count that one. Okay, so in this first photo, the rough-legged hawk is facing directly away from the camera, but you can see that the bill is quite small, and that's a characteristic of rough-legged hawks. It's an adaptation to cold weather. In this photo, we can now see the broad white band at the top of the tail, and that's another good field mark. And then in this shot, we can see the underwing pattern with the dark wingtips and the dark patches at the wrists separated by white. And this photo shows both the underwing pattern and the tail pattern, all of which are really good for rough-legged hawk. One thing I wanted to mention in this video, since we're starting out this challenge now, is to, kind of set the ground rules. So I need to photograph these birds in order to count them for the challenge, but it doesn't have to be like good quality photos. It just needs to be something where you can identify the bird. I kind of went back and forth on that last year with my home patch challenge, so let's just set that out. I'm not going to get to 250 if I need to have something that looks like a magazine cover for each bird, that's for sure. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to count the rough-legged hawk photos, even though they are of a lower quality than I normally like to put in my videos, and that's just something I'm going to have to get used to, swallow my pride and say, that's good enough, I need to count that one. I made one more stop at the Hellcat area, but the Bill Forward pool was almost completely frozen over, except for one little patch of water being kept open by a group of mute swans, which are pretty much the only birds around. This swan is keeping the water open by pushing on the newly frozen ice with its chest. I had heard about this ice-breaking behavior by swans, but I had never observed it before, so that was kind of interesting. Okay, so I think I'm done for the day at Plum Island now. Just looking at my checklist, and I think I've got around 27 species for the day. That's not great, not terrible. The real issue for today was the high winds, making it very unpleasant to be out of the car for very long and made it very difficult to film anything. So didn't actually get a lot of birds on film here today. But overall, I think that the quality of the birds that I've gotten so far in the first few days of the year is pretty good. I'm not too worried about what my total is at this point. It's more about how many good birds do I have. So I'm going to wrap this episode up here, and I will be back hopefully next week with another episode. Thanks very much for watching and for following along, and please remember to subscribe if you'd like to follow this 250 bird challenge throughout the year. Bye for now.